going to try to finish this tape, and I'm not going to put any more up. I don't think it's going to take it to shutting me down on here. I was told, I have been trying, my Facebook's been hacked, and this has had a virus before, and I had to have it redone. Now I have it redone, and it's back. This morning I can't get anything, and it says virus. I'm supposed to. So anyway, I haven't. I want to say this, continue. My sons, Mark and Scott, I wrote a book in Atlanta about mind control, and I was flown out to Flint's. I just showed that during the political campaign because he was shot in Lawrenceville, and it was programming that was done in patterns. And I put all this on before. This is April of '84. And I want to say this. I was kidnapped and brought here to this family. I just recently got this photo. This is the woman that had twins, and she murdered them, and they all hid it. And this is me a couple of years later. Now, it's who I am, and I've shown all this on there. Now, I was taken. I want to get this point across. The children, I've looked and looked for my children. I have died every day, and the only place I could scream and cry is up on top of the mountain, praying I found my kids. And it's the most hideous thing this country has done to me, and I realize this tape, with the power they have, can be used against me. I was taken here, and this is Virginia State Trooper, Carl Barton's wife. And it was here that I was told by Eric Smith, Ranger, that was not my sons. This was not Mark and Scott, that the state troopers put me in touch with, or said it was. The one that came up and pretended to be Scott, and he had his ID, so does the one saying he's Mark. And that's the one that just got on Facebook, and now then I can tell you I saw enough of it. This is not Mark. I tell you what he's saying. He's saying weird things. He's got all of Mark's ID, where he worked. He has assumed his identity. Both of them did. The guy that's pretending to be Scott. When Scott came up, the state trooper, I was affordable, so they'll remember this. Gene Martin, all of them will. They know. When he came up, he had a book, and remember, I hadn't seen them really since '80, except sporadic for a couple of times. And my ex-husband had married this woman, which I know now was planned, and she helped sign papers to have me murdered. The Cobb County Police showed it to me. But her name was Twyla Joyce Pelham. She lives in Rutherford, I believe, lived in Lawrenceville and lived in Marietta. It's the same apartments when I had the letter from the FBI, and my apartment was taken by my ex-husband. I had the antifreeze put in me, and the U.S. Marshal Carnwright was with my kids that night when so much was happening. So my kids would remember that and all of this, really. But she helped in my attempted murder anyway. The new wife did, to keep me from getting alimony. I only asked for that, not after the antifreeze, because I didn't know that he had remarried or anything. But anyway, I'm going to skip all that. I'm going to say this. The Marshal's office was involved in it way back then. So now then, you've got the Rangers, because I lived out in the forest just to have a place to live. I was living here paying rent, but I went out there to get away from, I'm allergic to chemicals. This has nothing to do, this has to do with an immune disorder, that if you're allergic to chemicals, and if you're force-fed them or they're toxic to you, makes your immune system attack itself. So this is a letter, and it's right after then that I thought I'd found my sons, the State Trooper Barton and his wife, and Frida Barton was her name that's kin to him. And the one called himself Scott, and I was so proud. Oh, God, this is my sons. I have them back. He came, and he had a book on him. And, by the way, the ID he had and the one that's on Facebook of Mark Childers, and don't confuse it with Mark S. Childers from, I believe he's from Dallas. and his family, because they are nice and they're not related. He's just a Facebook friend, and I don't want to confuse it with the one that's pretending he's Mark Childers. And that just came up, and my phone's now saying virus again, and I need to cut it off, and the YouTube's going off, so I can't even post on it. That's not my son Mark. Now then, the reason I haven't said anything about this on YouTube or Facebook is I don't know where my sons are. If the Marshal Service actually has put doubles in, which it appears that they have, I don't want to jeopardize my sons' lives, Mark and Scott, if they're alive and being treated halfway well. So, but now I'm going to put it on here. I don't see what else can happen other than they finish me off. And anyway, I put it up on YouTube about the Twyla. I found out her name. I didn't know it until the other day when I Googled. So I put that up on YouTube, so I'm sure if she knows of it, it's about time some of these people that committed the crimes at least were exposed for what they've done. But this person that I thought was told was Scott, came up, and he had a book from, he came up on the Greyhound bus, and supposedly Mark was out in, listen to this, I live in Roanoke, Texas, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell you who they're supposed to be. They have the ID down pat, Social Security numbers, they got the memory, they sound like them, you would not believe it. Mark, the one that's on just befriended me again, and everything goes out, and saying things that are totally untrue of my son Mark. That's what really gets me, is with the, he's a Texas Ranger, and I don't doubt that. I've been told that before. I was sent a picture from him. It's on one of my phones way back then. This is the way he really looks. And I was told by the one that came and lived with me at this apartment, and they'll remember it, I was told by him finally when he left the apartment, I had to give it up. I couldn't afford it anymore. They went up on the rent. He actually told me that Mark and he wore masks, and that's what made them look like Mark and Scott, but they had the voice and the memory down pat, and it broke my heart the last time I saw Scott. And you keep clinging to what if there's a chance it's really Mark and Scott, even with being told all this. It's your kids, for God's sake. Anyway, when Scott came there, and the state trooper Barton was one that helped make me think it was he and Frida Barton, that it was my kids. Scott was supposed to still live in Marietta, and Mark was out at that time in Roanoke. Now then, he's on the friend thing I just signed, and then found out that it's still not him, and it's the same person that it's pretending to be. He lives in Crum, Texas, of all places now. And he's got everything that was Mark's, all of it down pat. But the point is that when Scott, the one saying he's Scott, came up on the bus, and State Trooper Barton was part of that whole thing, and he came in, he had a book from Cobb County Library, and he opened it to the flap, and it had that he was really, I believe it said he was FBI, and he was going to infiltrate and see if he could make the people in the family believe that he was their son. I've forgotten the name of it, but that's the gist of what the flap said. And the book was legit. I didn't read it. The one didn't need to. So it had me wondering. And then Eric Smith, I'll go ahead and show this again. I'd gone out, and this young man calling himself Scott, who I'm now told was a U.S. Marshal, and as far as I know, he's still down there in Cobb County using the same ID. And, of course, the one saying he's Mark, he just got in touch with me on Facebook, and now my Facebook's gone out again. And believe me, that's the same one that was pretending back then. He's supposed to be, and I don't doubt it, with a Texas Ranger. This is the Ranger, Forest Ranger, Eric Smith. And he told me when I was living here, I went out there to camp, legally, by the way, and he came